Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm having connection issues with the audio. If you can put in the chat box if you can hear me, that would really help. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so thanks everybody for joining me. This is a topic that a lot of doctors have asked me questions on, and I thought that I would just kind of share my own experiences and hopefully it can help some of you guys that are interested in getting your staff involved in more of the specialty lens sector so that you're not doing all the work. So in case you need to get a hold of me after this is over, you can visit my website. It's just drstephaniewu.com, and I also have Facebook and Instagram as well. Okay. All right. So if you guys don't know who I am, my name is Dr. Stephanie Wu, and I graduated from SCCO. I completed a cornea and contact lens residency from the University of Missouri in St. Louis. And I owned 3 private practices in Arizona and California. And I basically was able to grow the specialty lens population from essentially 0 to over 1,000 patients in 5 years. I presented 100 plus hours of CE on the topic of specialty contact lenses. It's one of my biggest passions. I also write for a lot of optometry publications like Contact Lens Spectrum and Review of Optometry, things like that. And I'm the founder of Contact Lens Institute of Nevada. That's my clinic here in Las Vegas. It just opened in January of this year. It's awesome. It's just specialty lenses only. I don't do anything else anymore. So I don't practice primary care. I don't do glasses. I just do specialty lenses. So this is now my entire focus. And I'm also the founder of Wu University, which this is kind of like an organization I started to kind of get education to practitioners on mostly topics about specialty lenses and kind of more of the business side of specialty lenses. And also drstephaniewu.com, which is an optometry coaching and consulting company. So just kind of in a nutshell here, thank you so much for everybody for joining me tonight. So I'm just going to kind of give you a brief history and just kind of start at the beginning and just kind of let you know where I'm at. And maybe it resonates with maybe where you are now or maybe where you were a few months back. And what happened was I started with a private practice, and essentially we didn't have any scleral lens patients or really any specialty lens patients at all. The doctors that were working there really just did comprehensive exams and glasses, soft contact, cataract post-ops, things like that. So when I got into practice and I joined up with this private practice that was, really well seasoned, I said, I really want to bring specialty lenses to this practice. But one of the issues was nobody knew how to do anything except for me, because all of the staff, all the technicians, all the opticians, really no one knew much about specialty lenses, if anything. So I basically had to do everything myself. So just kind of go through a rundown of what that would include. So I had to do all of the testing. So think about the topography that you're doing, pachymetry. I was doing OCT testing on some of my patients to make sure there was nothing going on in the back of the eye. And then, of course, any other things that I thought would be helpful to the exam. So after I did all the testing, then I would do the consultation with the patient. So I do all the testing, look at their eyes, check their vision, everything like that. And then I would present the options with the patient. So let's pretend they have keratoconus. I would say, all right, Mrs. Smith, you've got keratoconus. This is what this disease is. Maybe educate them if they are not aware. with what it was. And then here's the different lens options that you have. And then I would just kind of explain the pros and cons, the different finances, things like that. So I was also presenting the fees. So not only was I presenting them with all the options that they have, but also what were those fees that were associated with each option. I also had to answer a lot of their questions on fees. You know, what is it including? Is there a warranty on the lens? What happens if this doesn't work? What if I break a lens? So I had to answer all of those questions within the consultation as well. Then let's say the patient did want to go through with the fitting. Then they would come back and I had to do everything. So I had to prepare the lenses. I had to insert the lenses onto the patient's eye, do all of the testing. So I had to do the over-refraction, look at it with the slit lamp, check anterior seg photos, OCT, basically everything that would be involved with the scleral lens fitting. I had to do myself. There were no technicians or anything that were able to help me with anything, or at least very minimally. And then the dispense. So I would get the lenses, and I would measure them, check them, make sure that everything looked good, then insert the lenses on the patient's eye. And then after that, I would also have to be doing the insertion and removal training. So remember, with my staff, they don't know anything about these lenses, so I had to be the one to show the patients how to put them in, how to take them out, how to take care of them, things like that. Then at their follow-up, so let's say they came back 2 weeks later, I would do all the OCT imaging, anterior segment imaging, things like that, at all of their follow-ups for a while. And then another thing was billing. So the staff had no idea what kind of codes to use. They didn't know how to get an authorization. They didn't know what ICD-10 codes to use. They didn't know any of these things, so I had to really kind of spearhead the billing of specialty lenses as well. And then on top of all of that, I had to answer all the patient questions anytime someone called. So if somebody called just wanting to know information about this type of lens, before they even saw us, I would have to answer that. Or if they would call because they had a question on what was going on with the lens, you know, maybe their eye was red, and is that normal? They can't get the lens out. You know, all of these questions had to come to me because none of the staff knew how to answer any of these questions. So if we look at this as a whole, let's review the amount of doctor time that I'm spending with these patients, and maybe you are spending with these patients as well. So all the testing for the consultation or some of their preliminary things before they get fit with lenses, I would say, you know, that takes approximately, let's say, 30 minutes to do all the necessary tests that you want done before you proceed with the scleral lens fitting or specialty lens fitting. And then I would say probably 10 or 15 minutes to review all the options with the patients. A lot of times they have questions. They want to know the pros and cons between different lens designs. You know, how come a corneal gas permeable lens costs less than a scleral lens? You know, there's all these different questions that can come up that we need to answer. And then presenting the fees, going over the fee structure, if there's a payment plan, what happens if it doesn't work, things like that. So that's about 10 minutes. Fitting the scleral lens, depending on how skilled you are, 1 to 2 hours. I mean, for me, even after my residency, where that's all I did was fit specialty lenses, I still would take about 2 hours with a patient in the beginning, just because I was getting used to my own flow and my new equipment and my new office and things like that. Dispense, I would also say, is probably about 30 minutes to an hour. And then insertion and removal training can also take up to an hour, depending on how well the patients do and how comfortable they are with lens handling. Follow-up care, I would say for a specialty lens follow-up, you're probably spending about 30 minutes with the patient, assessing the lens fit, taking any images, doing an over-refraction, taking the lens off, checking their corneal health and ocular health. And then billing, that can take, who knows? I mean, that could go from 15 minutes to an hour. And in some cases, when you're trying to fight with these insurances that aren't paying you, or you need to give them all this information so that they will get this authorized. I mean, that could be hours on hours if you added up all the time together. And then all of the patient questions that kind of come back and forth. So I hate to break it to you, or if you look at it in a different aspect, I am excited to break it to you, but basically all of these things that have been taking up so much doctor time, you can find staff and you can train staff to do essentially almost everything. And that's what I'm going to go over tonight. So first, let's identify where's the first opportunity for you. So this is a topic that I posted on a Facebook group called Business of Scleral Lenses. And this is something that I had asked some of the other practitioners on this group. And I said, where do you guys think the best use of staff time is if you are a doctor that's doing absolutely everything? What's the first thing that you should get staff to help you with? And by far, this was the number one thing that almost every person said. I think Jeff Swearington's on the call. I think he chimed in, and he also said, yes, get your staff trained on insertion and removal. That is going to be the number one thing you want to get done right away. If you're the person doing everything, get a staff member trained for this, because it's the biggest waste of doctor time. So this is what I did. I found a staff member that was proficient in soft contact lens training. So if you're working in a regular optometry practice, you probably have someone that is already skilled in soft contact lens insertion, removal, and care. So I found that staff member and I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. It's a different type of lens, similar to kind of what you're doing. So they're already kind of familiar with contact lenses in general. So I figured that was the best person to target. So what I did was I would still do all of the insertion and removal training with the patient, and I would have that staff member take lots of notes. So they would write down everything I was doing, and then afterwards, then they would ask me questions. You know, why did you do this? Or how would I know to do that? And I would answer all those to make sure they had a really good understanding of what I was doing. Then after you do a few of these and the staff member is observing you, you're going to want to practice on another staff member if you have time. If not, then they would just observe you more. But basically, the point of that is you get another staff member to sit as your patient, and then you can kind of watch the staff member that's going to be doing the training and give feedback. Then after that, they can start doing it with real patients, and you as the doctor can observe again, and you'll be able to see if there's anything that maybe they're not telling them that's correct, give them feedback. And then once you get really comfortable that they are able to present the information the way you want it presented, then you can kind of let them go on their own. That's kind of the approach I would take, and this is what I would do, and it worked really, really well. So then you just kind of keep doing that until you feel that that staff member is proficient, and then you can set them free. And then the great news is that staff member can train other staff. And I will say, just with a caveat to this, is that if you've ever played that game Telephone, where you say something to someone's ear and then they repeat the same sentence to their friend, and then they repeat it down the line, and then the last person says what they really thought the first sentence was, and it's always messed up. Well, I have found that as more staff members have been trained, there is some sort of dilution in the system, and they start not doing it the way I taught them years ago. So I would highly recommend doing like a refresher course or something, or kind of talking to the staff to make sure that they still are on the same page as you, and they are teaching the patients how you want them to be trained. But definitely, this is the first thing that you want to get done right away. So once the staff are trained, then you can adjust your schedule. So what I mean by this is, if you schedule a scleral lens or specialty lens dispense and training, let's say you do it and it's like right before your lunch hour, you might want to stick around for like part of your lunch in the beginning, because the staff members can sometimes get really nervous once they're by themselves doing it, or if the patient has a question and they don't know what the answer is and they kind of panic and they need your help. So I'd recommend just kind of sticking around for the first few, maybe just for the first few weeks, just in case. Then once they feel really, really confident, then you can start targeting, or you can start scheduling your patients strategically. What I mean by this is, what I now do is I have the last patient of the morning as a dispense, somebody that's going to need insertion removal training, and then I will do everything that needs to be done with the actual lens, get all that done, and then I will pass them off to the staff member to do the training while I go to lunch. So I have someone that is kind of working and making me money when I'm not even there. So that's a strategy. Also, I always had my insertion removal training patients also scheduled toward the end of the day. So when I was done, I was done at 4 o'clock with the dispense, and the patient just needed training. So then I would pass them off, and then I'd get to go home early. So once you have staff that are really, really proficient, and you feel really comfortable, you can start staggering and scheduling your patients strategically. I wouldn't do this until you are really, really confident. I probably didn't do this for like a year or so, because there was always stuff that came up. They always had questions, and I didn't want to be coming back to the office when I was already out. But now the staff, they're so well trained. They know exactly what to do. They know what questions are going to be answered. So I feel very comfortable leaving them by themselves after I'm done with all the dispense and all that stuff. Okay, so now we've covered the insertion removal training. So now let's talk about the next opportunity. So I think that one of the next things that you're going to want to focus on is all of the testing. So that's going to include all the equipment that you have, including your topographer, if you have pachymetry measurements, if your topographer doesn't measure pachymetry, if you've got other instruments, a lot of your technicians probably already do OCT measurements, things like that. But all of this stuff can be taught to them. And I think that's where it becomes really it saves you a lot of time. So get the staff trained on all the equipment. So the topography, pachymetry, even your OCT imaging. So if you look on the bottom image here, you can see that we're measuring the amount of central clearance, and then I always have them check the edges as well. So they know how to use the OCT now, and they know what measurements I want taken, so they'll take pictures of those. And then even anterior segment imaging. There's a lot of systems out there that are quite easy to use, and you can teach a staff member how to take images of the lenses. And for me, I always take pictures of all the 4 quadrants of their lens, and so the staff knows that, so they know that that's part of the protocol when it comes to specialty lens patients. They can also these things seem really small, but it saves time. For me, I always do an auto refraction when I'm doing either their fitting, their dispense or follow-ups, because I'll just check their prescription really quick. And I have the technicians load that into the phoropter for me. I know that sounds like, okay, you could just do that easily, but it's just one less thing. So I just put that in front of their face, and then I start checking and seeing if they need any residual prescription. If you have a technician that is skilled in refraction, they could even do the refraction for you if you felt comfortable. I didn't have any technicians that were certified as far as refraction goes, so I never had that luxury. But if you are in a clinic modality that would allow that, that would be an option for you to minimize your time even more. So let's talk about the next opportunity, the scleral lens fitting. So you can actually get the staff to help you with the scleral lens fit. And it can start off kind of rudimentary. So they could just kind of help prepare the lenses for you. They can clean them. They can get the next lens ready. So a lot of times when I'm fitting patients with a corneal gas permeable lens for keratoconus, I've got my fitting set and I'll put one lens on, I'll put some fluorescein in and I'll take a look and I'll just start talking and I will start telling the staff member what I'm seeing. And then they'll start writing down all my notes so that I'm not looking at it, taking some notes, looking at it, taking some notes, and then taking the lens off, and then they've already got the next one for me. So even just little things like that can expedite the process of a specialty lens fit. They can also help set up the patient. So they can give them the little dental bib or give them paper towels to put on their clothes to make sure that the liquid doesn't get on their clothing. They can hand them tissues during the fitting to help. It's just little things like that can really, really help you. So you can really focus just on the patient at hand. Once they get really well trained, then they can actually put lenses into their eyes. And I think this has been really, really helpful. So if you can get staff trained to insert the lens, that's awesome because they're going to be able to help you at the fitting. They're going to be able to help you at the dispense, any follow-ups. I mean, any time that a lens needs to be put into the eye, they're going to be able to help you. This was really helpful to me. And then imaging. So let's say you're doing a bunch of testing, putting different lenses on the eye, and you found one that you want to get some images with, you can just send them with the technician. The technician can take them to get all their OCT imaging and their external imaging while you maybe do some notes or, prepare the next lens or whatever you need to do while they're getting that done. So this definitely helps with timing. So next opportunity would be the dispense and the follow-up care. So for the dispense, you can have the staff write down all of the lens parameters, either in your electronic medical system or if you're on paper, having them write down everything. So that was something that I spent time with my staff in the beginning on what do all these numbers mean? What do all these letters mean? And then they could say, okay, so I know for sure I have to have the base curve or BC or whatever the company abbreviates it to. I know I have to have the power in here somewhere. I know I have to have the diameter. So they've got ways to kind of put information in pretty easily. And then the staff can insert the lens if they are trained on how to do that. They can check their vision. They can do all the OCT imaging because you've already taught them how to do all that. They can do external photos because you've already taught them that. They can do over-Ks or over-topography. I always love doing that to check for flexure. They can do an auto-refract. And if they are able to do the over-refraction, they can do that as well. So then you as a doctor, you're just coming in, taking a look, maybe double-checking the over-refraction, and then they're off getting their insertion removal training. So, I mean, that's like 5-10 minutes versus like an hour of your time beforehand. Follow-ups, your staff can do all the case history, finding out how they're doing. Are they having discomfort? What are they using to clean the lens, fill the lens? All of those normal questions that you would be asking the patient. Now the staff member would be able to do that. They would check their vision, and same thing. all of their imaging, their OCT images, external photos, over-Ks, auto-refraction, and then if they are able to do any sort of over-refraction, they can do that. But even with my staff not knowing how to do any sort of refraction, this still cut down tremendously on my time because they were able to do everything else. Next opportunity will be billing. So there are a lot of staff resources out there for free. There's webinars, there's lots of different webinars out there. Dr. Clark Newman just gave a really excellent one through the GPLI. And the GPLI is a nonprofit organization that helps doctors with gas permeable lenses. So there's lots of archived webinars on GPLI. I love that as a resource. There's articles, contact lens spectrum, there's optometric management, there's review of optometry, optometry times. I mean, there's like so many different publications out there that have this type of information available. And continuing education, there's lots of things at CE events. There's always a few billing and coding modules out there, especially at Global Specialty Lens Symposium. That's a big specialty lens conference here in Vegas every year in January, and that they always usually will have at least one or two billing and coding courses. And then last is like a billing service. So if you just don't want to get into this and you need help and you just have no clue what to do, there's services out there that you can hire, and they can help you and get that figured out. So the next opportunity would be reviewing all of the options with the patient and then presenting the fees. So this is kind of like after you do the initial consult and they've done all the testing. So when you do the consultation, you're reviewing the options with the patient and you're discussing all options with the patient. Glasses, soft contacts, corneal GPs, hybrids, sclerals, doing nothing, cross-linking, there's a bunch of things that you could be going over. And then reviewing the pros and cons of all the options that you think they would do well with. And then you as a doctor should make a strong recommendation to one or two modalities. This is something that I still think the doctor should be involved with, because the patient is coming to you for your expertise, and they want to know what their best options are based off of their unique eye issue. So I always do this. I always talk to the patients and go over the options with them and explain all of the different options they have, review the pros and cons, and kind of go from there. You can also review the pricing with them if that's something that you want to do as the doctor. And then answer any questions, whether it's something with the warranty, maybe it's something with how long the lens is going to last for. There's so many questions that come up, but they're usually the same ones that come up over and over again. And then here's a question that always comes up. Is it better if the doctor is the one presenting the fees or the staff? And I think it's different for each practice. Me personally, I do it myself, but I'm in a clinic situation now where I'm doing the majority of the work, and it's a concierge type clinic where the patient gets me for an hour by themselves or 2 hours, and so I feel like it's my duty to be able to explain everything to them. But if you think of, let's say, a dentist's office, usually when you go to a dentist and they look and they say, okay, you need a crown or you need, this type of surgery, they have someone else come in and then they go over all of the options with you as far as pricing goes. And then they're the ones that answer all the questions. Similar to like a LASIK clinic, the doctor usually will come in and evaluate things and then say, yes, you're a good candidate for LASIK. Here's the pros and cons of the different types, and Amy is going to come in and she's going to talk to you about the pricing. And so the doctor in that case usually is not the one presenting the pricing and answering those questions. So I really think it just depends on your comfort level as the doctor and kind of how your clinic operates, and everybody's going to be different and unique. And then answering all the patient questions, that's just something that you need to take the time to educate the staff really well. I like to have staff meetings. I used to have them once a week, where like on Friday mornings from 8 to 9, we wouldn't schedule any patients. We would just kind of go over either stuff going on with the office, new technologies coming in, and just answering questions. But if you ever do have staff meetings, this is a really good way to educate the staff on, here's all the common questions that you're going to get, and this is how to answer them. I also have like a little binder that I would have the staff keep, and they would actually have a binder that had commonly asked questions and what the answers were. So if a patient called, they could look in their little cheat sheet and they'd be able to kind of find out what was going on and be able to answer those. So I'm going to answer some questions before the last part of this webinar is I'm going to go through my exact flow and kind of go through what I do and where you could be. So I'm just going to answer a few questions really quick. Okay, great question from Sharon. Now that we have restrictions with COVID, can't have too many bodies in the exam room, that it will deter me from training my staff. My exam room is 10 by 8. That's a really good point, Sharon. Right now it is such a weird time that we're living in, and I will just kind of leave that up to your comfort level and kind of how you feel is being responsible for the patient and the staff. You could possibly, Sharon, just do some training in office on each other, if you guys are comfortable, because you guys work in close proximity all day anyway. You could start by doing it on each other, different staff members, and then once things get a little bit back to normal, you can practice on patients. But if you have staff members that feel comfortable kind of practicing on each other, then that can kind of prepare them for helping other patients. Jeff, hi. Saw you have materials on advanced versus intermediate fees. Can you share what you talk about with your patients on these, and can I get a copy of what you share with the patient? Yeah, great question. So basically, what I do is I have changed my my fee schedule now that I have a different type of model clinic, since I'm only doing cash, where I basically have like a very basic specialty lens fitting, an intermediate, and advanced. And so what I do is I talk to the patients and I say, okay, you have this problem, and this problem. These are the two options, let's say, that I think are going to work best for you, and then I say why. Sometimes, Jeff, I don't even give them an option. Like I had a patient that has, she's had RK surgery, she's got glaucoma, she's had cataract surgery, she has macular degeneration, and she's got a corneal scar. So in that case, I'm like, this is absolutely not going to fall under the basic specialty lens fitting. It's going to be the advanced one. That's the only way that we're going to even go down this route, because I've already been down that road many times, and I just felt that was the best option for her. So Jeff, I'm happy to share that with you. Just send me an email afterwards to remind me, and I can absolutely get that to you. Another question from Sharon: how do you get referrals from specialty lens fits when you're concierge not taking insurance? Great question. So I have hit the ground running as soon as I got here to Las Vegas. I've been knocking on doors, meeting other doctors with marketing materials, and just kind of letting them know what I can do, what kind of patients I can help them with. And I always tell them that it's a cash model clinic, and that will definitely result in only certain types of referrals. They know that they're not going to send every single patient to me. But I think being really transparent and telling those referral sources kind of how my clinic operates, that kind of directs which patients are going to send my way. And it's been really great so far. I mean, we've only really been fully open for like 4 months because of COVID. And it's actually been very, very well accepted. And so, yeah, thank you for that. And from Wilma, how many employees do you have? So in the clinic that I'm kind of talking about in this presentation, where I trained my staff from basically not knowing anything to where they are now, where they can essentially do almost everything, that's 32 employees. In my new clinic in Las Vegas, it's just me. I have an associate doctor, and then I have one full-time employee that manages the phones and the faxes and referrals and things. So great questions. Okay, so I'm going to move on, and then, of course, still keep typing your questions in here, and I will get to those at the very end. And now I am going to reveal my flow, and this is the flow that I have in my Arizona and California offices, where I have 30 employees from the different clinics. So going from me doing absolutely everything, this is what the staff do now. So this is like a regular practice, regular glasses, contacts. So they do everything. This is not a specialty lens clinic per se. This is a regular private practice that does, glasses, contacts, post-ops, emergency visits, and specialty lenses. So this is probably very similar to many of your clinics. So this is what I do. I have the staff schedule all consultations during my lunch break. So all consultations that come in, or referrals that are coming in from other doctors, they come in at 12:30, and I take lunch from 12 to 1. So they come in at 12:30, I'm not there. And so at 12:30, there's a staff member that does all of the testing. They do case history, topography, pachymetry, external imaging, retinal wellness scans, endothelial cell count. They check their vision with their either current glasses or contacts, their pressure, and fundus photos. They do all of that while I'm at lunch. So then I come in around 1 o'clock, I take a look with the slit lamp, and then I go over all of the images that the staff have taken, and I educate the patient on their eyeball and what I feel the best options are for them. Then the staff review the pricing and they go over the contract. So once I give a strong recommendation for one or two options, I leave the room, and then the staff member, the billing staff member, will go in and they will go over the pricing, and then they will go over the contract, which reviews the warranty, what happens if the lenses don't work, do they get a refund, what happens after 90 days, do they still get to come in for free, or do they have to pay? I mean, all of these questions are answered in this contract. Then the patient is scheduled for a fitting. So I don't do the fittings on the same day, except for if the patient is traveling. If they are coming from like hours away to see me, I will make sure they will put the consult like at the end of the day, so that if they do proceed with the fitting, I can just do it right then. So that's just how my clinic operates back in Arizona, where I'm seeing 40 patients a day. It's too difficult to do the fitting on the same day as their consult. So then they get scheduled for their fitting. It's usually 1 or 2 weeks later. Then the staff, they perform the necessary testing. So let's say they need like a pentacam or an SMAP or something else. And then they will actually put a scleral lens in the patient's eye based on that information. So I have an SMAP, and so when the staff takes the images, it actually calculates what lens to put on the patient's eye as like a baseline. So the staff don't even have to think. All they have to do is take the images, and then they say, oh, it needs to be 4.2 SAG. Let me look in this Europa set. Oh, here's 4.2, pop that in. They put that in, they do the OCT, They take external images, they put the autorefract data in the phoropter, and then again, this is like on my lunch break when we're scheduling these fittings. And then I enter the room, perform an over-refraction lens assessment, and if you had a trained tech to do your over-refraction, you can certainly go down that route. Or, in my case, I did the over-refraction. Then the tech will remove the lenses because these are just diagnostic lenses, and I order and design the lens. If you have really good staff members that you trust to order and design the lens, you certainly can. I think I'm just too type A and a perfectionist when it comes to that. So I feel like I need to really be involved with the lens design, and I need to have the final say on what the lenses are going to be like. Okay, so then that was the fitting. Next is the dispense. So we ordered the lenses. Let's say they come to your office in 2 weeks, and the staff call the patient. Hey, Mrs. Smith, your lenses are here. Let's get you scheduled for your dispense. So the technician will put in the lens. They'll check the vision. They'll do all the OCT imaging, the external photography, and they'll do an auto refract and put that into the phoropter for me. I will take a look with the slit lamp, and I'll look at all the images to see if we need to make any adjustments. If everything is looking fairly good, then the tech will take the patient for insertion or removal training, and then I will go to lunch. Okay, so next is the scleral lens follow-up. So let's say they're coming back 2 weeks later, and the technician will take case history. They'll check their vision. They'll do OCT imaging, external imaging, auto-refract data in the phoropter. I'll look with the slit lamp, do the over-refraction if I need to. I'll take the lens off, check for staining, and then just talk to the patient about how everything's going, answer any questions they have, and then they're scheduled for their next follow-up. So that was my flow, personal flow. So I went from having to do everything myself to having the staff basically do almost everything for me. I'm just involved in the things that the doctor really needs to be involved with. So it's definitely possible. You can absolutely get your staff trained to do this. If you found this webinar helpful, you can always visit my website for a list of services. I do have some free resources on there as well. And I'm definitely going to answer some more questions now. So let's have a look. Okay, so since staff is so important to you, do you find them threatening to leave to get a raise? I'm in Northern California. That's a good question, especially in California where you're having to pay your staff a lot more than I do in Arizona. No, I've never had a staff member say, like, I am really important to this patient's care, and I know that you can't do this without me, and I want to raise because I'm essentially like doing everything. I have never had that issue before. I know that that's probably like something that could happen, but in my last 10 years, that's never been an issue. No staff member has ever threatened that they need a raise because they're involved in so many things. Now, of course, you could give them more of a raise, and they do get paid more than the technicians that don't know how to do all of this, and that's very well deserved. But nobody's ever threatened, which is a good thing. And then let's see, I think I saw a couple more questions here. Okay. Okay, so Jordana asked what OCT I use. In the Arizona and California offices, there's the OptoView OCT. And then in my office here in Las Vegas, I have a Maestro. It's a TopCon instrument that does OCT imaging and photography. So that's the one I use there. And for Joe, hi Joe, what is intermediate versus advanced? if you're talking about which lens options there are, basically, intermediate would be just like the next step up, like a foundational basic lens would be somebody that has, let's say, very mild keratoconus. They have nothing else going on. If they're an intermediate, maybe they need a lens that has toric haptics or an F1 toric or a multifocal. And then advanced would be like something like an eye print or something where the lens cost to me is super significantly higher than some of the other designs. So then I have to obviously pass that cost on to the patient. Great question. Okay, from Nicole, if I have 2 exam rooms and a patient is there for a scleral lens initial fit where we may be placing 2+ lenses on the eye and the patient will be going in and out of the room, should I designate one room for the patient's fitting? So let me think about this. Okay, so I always just use one room for the patient. So if you are able to, that just keeps it so, you know, they're not going back and forth so many times, and then you're just kind of keeping everything all in one room. I'm hoping that answered your question. If not, you can certainly type and write it a different way if I mess that up. Another one from Nicole, if the staff is putting lenses on, are you then teaching them to use a slit lamp to check for bubbles? I always check for bubbles before letting the lens settle 30 minutes. Yes, Nicole, excellent point. So the staff are trained to use, they basically are using an anterior segment camera, which is on the slit lamp. And so as soon as they go to take that first picture, when they put the lens on, they know right away if there's a bubble and they will take it out and they will put it back in. Great point. Another one from Jordana, where do you find your staff and how do you screen them? Hey, that's a great question. So if you're probably referring to my clinics in Arizona and California, where we have a lot of staff. And it was tough because those clinics are in rural areas. And so when we would put an ad out, like in the newspaper or something, that we were looking for someone, we'd get like 3 resumes. And that's because there's only like 50,000 people that live in that town. And one of the other towns that we have a practice in, there's only 3,500 people that live there. So it's slim pickings for sure. But I always recommend hiring for attitude and then training for aptitude. You want to find somebody that's motivated, and I actually prefer somebody that has no experience in the eye care field at all, because they seem to be, they're not jaded by something else that they have already been with, and so they have less pushback and less things to say if it's not going the way they want it to. So yeah, and now I also have found success with Facebook ads or social media ads. That's a really good way to hire now, because a lot of millennials and things are on social media. That's a great way. And then also Indeed, that was another platform that we used. Okay. And yeah, great point, Joe. Using a blue pen light is a great way for the staff to just quickly, look and then see if there's a bubble, take it out and put it back in. And you can get those blue pen lights like for free from a lot of the different companies. So whatever lab you're using for scleral lenses or specialty lenses, you should ask them if they have any of those little blue pen lights or keychains, and they usually will just give those to you. And another question, how often do you follow your scleral lens patients once finalized? Great question. So, Dina, that's a great question, because it really just depends on what the condition is. So if I have, let's say, a keratoconus patient that is moderate, and the cornea looks fairly healthy, they're doing really well with the lenses, not having issues, the fit looks great, their corneal health looks great, let's say after like their 2-week visit, I'll probably follow up with them in like 3 months. You could certainly push it out to 6. It's just your comfort level. I just like to follow my patients a little bit closer, and that's just a personal thing for me. But it will be different. Like right now, I'm managing this patient that's got pemphigoid. And so I'm seeing her every week because she's got this non-resolving defect that we're monitoring. So it just really depends on what condition the patient has, whatever the diagnosis is, and that will kind of gauge your follow-up. If it's a healthy cornea, not much going on, you can certainly push out your follow-ups to, 3-6 months. But if it's somebody that's got a diseased eye, maybe they have a transplant, you want to make sure that it's not developing edema or there's no rejection going on, you might want to follow up with that type of patient a lot more frequently. So definitely use your best judgment there. Well, great. So that was all the questions, I believe. And of course, if I didn't get to yours, please just go to my website, and there's like my email's on there, and you can certainly get a hold of me that way. You can also get a hold of me through Instagram or Facebook Messenger. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I really hope that this was helpful. This was recorded, so I will have this up on my website soon. I have a list of archived webinars that are getting put together right now, and this will definitely be available, and you can watch it again, or if you came in late, or if you found that maybe one of your staff members or maybe a friend would be helped by this, I would appreciate you sharing it. So thank you so much again, everybody, for joining me this evening, and I'm sure we will talk soon. Thank you.